You know, it's difficult to imagine for us really how hard life was on Stinking Creek 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
The houses, it was dark and bleak and cold. And there were probably 8 to 12 people in each one of these 3 or 4 room houses. 2, 3 generations living in them.
It was a grim way of life, I think. Even by the time Robert Kennedy held his poverty hearings in the mountains, there were people who were hungry, and they talked about that and testified about it. They were in poor circumstances and without much opportunity of changing that.
I grew up hearing about Stinking Creek all my life. My dad had written a book about Stinking Creek in the late 60s. I got to go with him a couple of times when he was researching the book, and the book sat on our bookshelves all my life. And I've often wondered what happened to the people of Stinking Creek 40 years later. So I decided to go back.
We came in the first time in April of 1958. There weren't bridges and there weren't roads.
Peggy and Irma are 2 missionaries, and they came with the goal to just help people on Stinking Creek, but they ended up changing their lives.
And you get to help her by the pumpkin, okay?
I realized that these 2 women had as much effect on Stinking Creek as the federal government's war on poverty.
Have you been living?
Pretty good.
3 years.
Peggy has brought a modern woman's sensibility in an old-fashioned package.
Peggy is known for by most people in this area as the lady who delivered the babies.
I don't know how many babies she's delivered. She's delivered a lot of them, I know that.
I've delivered 507 babies.
I mean, everybody talks how good Peggy is. She helps everybody, especially the poor people around here. There's a lot of poor people.
She keeps moving. She jumps in her car, she goes all over the mountains, she does whatever she wants, and she works all day long.
She's cared for a lot of sick, elderly people, too.
Take a pill I'll take every other day, might be deep.
When Peggy and Irma got to Stinking Creek, there wasn't anything like health care and good education and birth control.
Usually after a woman has had a baby, she's very receptive to hearing about how to prevent more. When I go back to check on the baby and check on her, then many times I could elaborate and tell her and get her to come to a clinic where she could get birth control.
Particularly for young women on Stinking Creek, Peggy and Irma were an example of how you can live your life a different way.
Miss Peggy has inspired me. She's the reason that I went to school to become a nurse.
My sister says Peggy is a better doctor than the doctors you go see in town.
Do they fix your insulin for you?
No, Jeannie does.
Jeannie's still doing that.
I remember Irma riding a big horse.
I rode my horse for first 3 years while I was living here, 8 miles each way to back and forth to school.
Irma is a thoughtful woman and a farmer.
We're thankful, God, that in spite of the rain and the darkness, there's the light of hope all around us, and the joy of being your child and being alive today to do whatever you have for us.
She has built something there, that's for sure. An entire farm, barns, houses, bridges, built roads. She's a worker.
It was very obvious very quickly here that farming was in my blood, and that's when I was happy.
I don't think you can understand the Appalachian person without understanding his religious beliefs.
In Genesis, we find this story. You've probably heard this story before. Now, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they only hated him the more. Peggy and I had dreams about lend a hand. It was a dream that we didn't even know what to name it.
Well, Peggy and Irma set up Lend a Hand, which basically is a volunteer center. People come from all over the country to serve there, to help Peggy and Irma run their farm and serve their community.
We never wanted to be a church. We don't have a church that you can join. Instead, we wanted to just teach the Bible, and more than anything else, I wanted to put a sparkle in their eyes. All we thought we had to do was, I would earn a living by teaching school, and Peggy would be free to be a nurse midwife and go to the homes and catch babies. And we also wanted to include working with young people and just be there for people when they needed us.
It's really cool for these kids to be able to come and serve and really see firsthand what that looks like with Peggy and Irma serving this community, and then get a chance to do it themselves.
All my sins are washed away. I've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb.
I just learned so much. And Peggy and Irma, I hear Laura talking about them all the time, and when I met them, I understood what she meant by just them being the smartest people I've ever met.
The whole idea was laughter and fun.
I'll help you carry on. 4, 5, it will be long. Short, I'm learning. Hello, somebody.
Is that good? Yeah. Okay.
You know, people didn't really take to Peggy and Irma right away. They were known as do-gooders, and they were sort of seen with suspicion.
We have gone through many things that sometimes we think maybe our dream is a nightmare.
One night, a bunch of men came to the bridge, with lanterns and threatened to burn them out.
The man that tried to burn us out in the 80s, that was his statement. I'm going to tear down the rocks so much that you'll never know that Irma piled put one rock on top of the other.
I asked her, why did you stay when your life was in danger? And she said, I knew God would help me and protect me.
As I look back over after 50 years, was it a valid dream? Could we make it work? Yes, it was possible. It is possible. So dream.